Hey, what's going on everybody? Welcome back to another fantastic episode of High on Rugs. Today we're taking on South Park and we're gonna make everyone's favorite orange hoodie wearing muffled voice poor kid Kenny McCormick. So to start things off, I'm pulling out the tufting cloth and laying it out flat so we can cut our section. This is a new kind of tufting cloth I just purchased to try out, and you can see I started to measure it and realized that those white lines were actually the perfect size that I needed, so not a whole lot of measuring needed. Just cutting out that big old square and folding up the rest for later usage. And then we're bringing it over to our tufting frame and beginning to hang it on the nails and stretch it all the way around until it is tight, tight, tight. With that all done, I'm pulling an image of Kenny up on the laptop, which is hooked up to a projector, which is projecting onto our tufting frame, and we're going to begin tracing out the design. So I just have a black Sharpie, and I'm just tracing out his little hands and his jacket and his feet, and then I'm going to scooch the image over and trace out his head separately from his body. Now, if you're wondering why I'm doing these two pieces separately, I think it will all become clear later on. So with everything traced out and the head of Kenny separated from his body, we can begin tufting. And we're starting with the black yarn because I like to do the outline first. It just makes sense that way. So we're starting off by just tracing out his lower half, following all our lines, making sure we follow those curves so that his head will fit nicely into his neck, and just going around. It's funny to me at this point, looking at the lower body, that it could literally be any of the South Park kids. Like, they all have the exact same body shape. Well, except for Cartman. But it could literally be any of them. And so we're just continuing around, working on his legs, just a little rectangle, and a nice few thick black lines for his feet. Just that flat foot of his. And I'm paying extra close attention to his thumbs and hands, making sure I get them as close to a perfect circle as possible. So with that done, the body is all outlined and we're turning our attention to Kenny's head. Starting with the drawstrings of his hoodie, and then working on the big circle, which is the shape of his head. And I was pretty proud of this shot here. Usually I do big circles in quadrants, you know, four different lines basically. But this time I did it in 2 lines, just kind of went for it, and you can see me just going around, fully sending it, full beans, all the way up and around the top of his head. And then it's just a matter of getting his face together. And it's funny to me looking at Kenny's face drawn on this like light gray, very light colored tufting cloth. It reminds me of the episode when all the boys adopted a metrosexual lifestyle, and Kenny wore this like lighter colored white hoodie that was very fluffy looking, very stylish. It reminds me of that one, seeing it in the lighter color like that. So now I'm just doing the curves of his eyes and adding his pupils, and that's pretty much everything we need to do with the black yarn. I'm just going around the outside and thickening up the border, just so I have a little more I can roll over later and give it a nice edge. And already we're switching over to the orange yarn, which of course, if you've ever seen Kenny before, you'll know that that is his primary color. I mean, I would say about 70% of all of Kenny is orange. Everything from his jacket, to his pants, to his hood. A lot of orange on this boy. It's surprising that he gets killed so often, seeing how he's wearing those bright colors that are good for people out in the woods hunting. Makes you more vibrant. So I'm just going row by row, filling in every single little piece of orange until it is all completed. Now, as many of you probably know, South Park premiered, I believe, in 1997, and I've been watching it since the beginning. When it came out, I was the same age that the boys are. I was in about 3rd or 4th grade, and so it just kind of clicked like it was meant to be. I've always been a big fan of their sense of humor. I mean, it's pretty raunchy, but when it first came out, I can still remember how pissed off a lot of people were. I mean, obviously it's a pretty inappropriate thing for little kids to be watching, but I did it anyways because I was a naughty little boy, and I would, you know, sneak my way around and watch it at night when my parents weren't around, and you can't stop me. And as Cartman would say, I think that show...
What, my fragile little man?
So we're just continuing on with the orange, and we're doing the biggest section of all, which is the outside of Kenny's hood, or his hoodie. Just a nice little time lapse of me going line by line, just 100 million little lines, all the way around until his head is fully colored in. I tried my best to find the appropriate orange color that would most suit Kenny. I think the color I went with is a little bit on the brighter side. I think Kenny in the show, his orange is just slightly dulled down. This is more of like a Kraft mac and cheese, powdered cheese kind of color. That orange radioactive stuff. But for all intents and purposes, I think it looks pretty good. And hey, you know, if it's brighter, it ain't hurting nothing. Just makes him pop a little more. So, with the outside of his hood filled in and the inside ring of his hood filled in, we are all done with the orange, and we're turning our attention to the brown color. Now this is just going to be used to fill in his thumbs, fill in the gloves, and of course, the inside of his hood. The padding part. Whatever you call that. The fluffy bits. I'm a Florida boy through and through, so I don't think I've ever put on an actual winter coat in my life. So forgive me if I don't have the right, if I don't know the right terminology for all the parts of a Colorado kid's hood. Now, if I had to pick a favorite episode of all time of South Park, I would probably have to go with the episode titled More Crap, which I believe is from Season 8, where Stan's father, Randy Marsh, takes what he believes to be the world's largest crap, and he's very excited about this and tries to get the world record, only for it to be taken back by Bono of the band U2, because Bono has to be #1 with everything. He can never be #2. And I won't spoil anything, but it's pretty damn funny to me. So if you haven't seen that one and you're a fan of South Park, I suggest checking it out. And let me know in the comments what your favorite episode of South Park is, because I've been kind of just binging back through it, watching old episodes, which was why I was inspired to make a Kenny rug in the first place. Now I went out shopping to find the proper colors of yarn that I would need for this project, and I could not for the life of me find the proper skin tone color. And then I was just standing in the store staring at my feet trying to think of what to do, and it struck me that I have made a human character rug before. The Peter Griffin rug where he fell down the stairs and landed in his death pose. And I was like, oh yeah, I think I still have some of that ground turkey color that I used for Peter Griffin's skin. I think that'll probably work perfectly for Kenny. Now I didn't show this in my row of colors, but I grabbed a real light gray color and I just sort of went around the outside of Kenny's eyes just to give him a little more shading, make him pop a little more. Getting the white yarn ready, and God, look at the fear in his eyes as that needle's about to punch right into his eyeball. Sorry, Kenny. I also found it interesting to watch as the little time lapse played out. It just kind of squishes his pupil down to the right size. And with that, all the tufting is done, and I'm dipping my hand into a bucket of Robert's 3095 carbon adhesive and just smearing it all over it. Just making sure every single piece is super saturated with glue, that nothing gets left out, nothing will pull out later. And showing off my grimy, dirty hand, and it's okay, that glue washes off super easy with just a little bit of soap. And so a few days later, the glue's had some time to dry, and I'm just removing it from the tufting frame. And just plopping it down where I can more easily work on it, and just trimming off all that excess cloth that we no longer need. Just leaving a good 3 inches all the way around, so I can then bust out the hot glue gun, cut it into little bite-sized pieces, and get the hot glue in each piece down, rolling it over slightly to give it a nice edge, and inexplicably moving further and further away from the camera. I don't know why I did that, but I did it again with the body. Just slowly moving further and further from the camera. But with that, all of it's been glued down, and we can start to give Kenny his dark secret, which is going to be that his head is going to come off, at least for the most part. So I'm taking some lengths that I've cut of red yarn and I'm twisting them nice and tightly, weighing them down with something heavy, just using a weighted mallet there. And then we're going to begin to start hot gluing them to the back of the head, making sure that I block the camera with my hand. And I'm just adding a little more glue just to make sure it ain't going anywhere. And with the one side glued, we can turn our attention to the side getting glued to his body and glue that side down as well. Lots and lots of glue, burning my fingers, and really patting it down, make sure there's no bulge once it's all completed. So I'm just adding another strand to the other side, same thing, a few more strands, pat it down, burn my fingers, block the camera, you get it. Until we have this. Kenny's got a gooey, bloody mess of a removable head, which is pretty standard for South Park. I imagine Kenny's head has been removed many, many times. And so once I'm happy with the bloody gooey mess that we've made of him, I am busting out the anti-slip backing material that I use, plopping both pieces down and giving them a nice trace around with a big fat Sharpie. And then I'm coming back with the scissors and trimming around the inside of my line ever so slightly just so it fits nicely. And once that's all cut out, we can pull out our can of spray adhesive, spray both sides, and then pat it down, making sure we have good purchase and it ain't going anywhere. And then the same thing with the other side of his head. Lots of glue, and press it down like your life depends on it. And then his body, I'm just doing in one shot since it's a real small piece. Lots of glue, and once again, patting it down. And after it's had a few minutes to really dry, I'm coming back through and I'm trimming off any excess hanging over, making sure that it all looks very clean. And all that's left to do is shave it up. I start off by just taking out all the high spots, just like I'm trimming the grass. And then I like to go through and get in between every single little line, really crisp them up, make sure that nothing looks too scraggly. And here's a nice before and after of what that shaving really does. And it really helps the whole image pop and makes it look a lot more clean. And so with that, we have a finished Kenny McCormick rug with a removable head. I think it came out looking pretty sweet, and I hope you would agree. And you can see I just pull his body right off, and there's his head and his guts just spilling out. I'm sure he's not too pleased about it, and he'll probably be pissed off when we all forget about it the next day. But that is how you make a Kenny McCormick from South Park rug with a removable head, his dark little secret. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I thank you for watching, and if you're new here, consider subscribing, because I'm always going to be making goofy little rugs and all kinds of crazy stuff. So until next time, I'll see you.